What's going on, Legionnaires, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. Now, as of recording this video, it is April 8th, 12:01 a.m., which means today I am officially 31 years old. Not only that, but this channel, we've been posting videos for a year now. So if you're new here, please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit that notification bell. Make sure you're not missing any of the awesome content we have coming out. Now, for this video, we're going to be diving into King in Black, Planet of the Symbiotes, issue number 3. And this will be closing out the Planet of the Symbiotes. Now, yesterday we saw the King in Black come to a close, and we saw Cosmic Venom make his rise, if you will, with the merging of Captain Universe and Eddie Brock. Now, the reason we didn't cover this issue yesterday is because, in all honesty, it has no real connection to the main story, to what happened in King in Black issue number 5. But it is really interesting, and we do see the appearance of Toxin, the grandchild or the grandson of Venom. Now, there's two different stories in here. One is written by Rodney Barnes, the other by Steve Orlando. Art is by Danilo Byruth and Gerardo Sandoval. And the cover is by Philip Tan. And with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright, Legion, so as we dive into the last issue of this little series, we get to see what Cloak and Dagger are currently doing during this King in Black invasion, during the symbiote invasion. Now, this first part, this opening panel, we get the dialogue of Dagger, because this darkness that's really come to be, this power that Noel has, it really does weigh on her. She can feel the heavy burden of it. You know, Tandy is supposed to be shards of light, if you will, but in the presence of Noel, it feels almost obtuse, because this complete darkness is almost too much. This isn't merely an absence of light, but rather the soul of humanity being torn from its chassis. Now, we really saw all of our heavy hitters dealing with everything that happened with Noel, with the dragons and all of that stuff, but on the streets, with everyday people, there's a lot of going on. There's a lot of chaos reigning. There's a lot of criminals taking advantage of this situation. And so Cloak and Dagger are doing their best to take on all of the criminals that are preying on the weak right now. They're preying on the helpless. They're preying on the individuals who are being taken advantage while all of the heroes are currently busy. Now, this is extremely disconcerting to Dagger, everything going on right now. But what is even more disconcerting to her is what's happening with Cloak. Because ever since the symbiotes arrived, ever since Noel had arrived, his psychic energy has had some kind of effect on Cloak. You know, he was never the warmest individual to begin with, but at this point he's seeming almost just straight up cold-hearted. Now, they're sitting on top of a building overwatching a crime in progress, if you will. And instead of working as a team, instead of being in sync, Cloak's kind of doing his own thing. And this is where he teleports down using the Dark Force dimension. And these two would-be criminals he takes down, opening up his cloak and grabbing them. Now, right now, Cloak he has been feeding off all of this darkness. But right now, for Tandy, it feels like there's something more going on here. Because these two used to be extremely close. They knew each other like they knew themselves. But right now, she couldn't feel more distant from him. And with these two criminals dispatched, Cloak goes to walk off and Tandy tries to stop him, trying to figure out like what is going on with him and why he didn't wait and have them do it as a team. But he really kind of ignores her and keeps walking over to the police officer, who introduces herself and lets us know that right now there's a bank robbery going on and their help is needed because SWAT and Tactical, they've been overrun at this point. And without even breaking a sweat, without missing a beat, we see Cloak teleport yet again, leaving Tandy behind. Now, this part in the story is where we take over and we hear Tyrone's side of the story. We hear Cloak's side of what is happening. Because tonight, he can smell the world's fear. the terror in the streets that's manifesting. It's no longer a matter of making this crooked place straight, because at the moment the whole world is crooked. Even before Noel had arrived, humanity had reveled in the sorrow. Now, Cloak is no stranger to pain. He has felt some pain that most could never endure in 1,000 lives. You know, and Dagger tells him at times he wears a melancholy sweater. And in Cloak's eyes, she is just too optimistic, though he does envy this. He wishes he could be as optimistic as her and see the positivity in everything like she does. And this is when we see Cloak arrive at a church, and he's met by Dagger. And she asks, like, what happened to him, and if he was able to get the bank robbers. Because at this point, he's been trying to track them down. And he tells her, you know, I think you're the only person in my life that I've ever trusted, but I can no longer be the person that you've known. He's kind of slipping into this darkness. With Noel here, the darkness is almost overbearing for him. And he's trying to make sense of the world the best he can. And this is when Dagger tells him, you know, what if the world isn't supposed to make sense? But if that's the case, then how does he find hope? Where does he find hope? And Dagger tells him that no matter how crazy things get, there will always be light. You just have to let me in. And we just have to keep the faith in one another. And after Noel and the world has all changed, we will always have one another. No matter what is ahead of us, no matter how drastically the world changes after Noel, we will adjust to life however it manifests. And this is when the officer lets him know that there is still plenty of work to be done because the night is still young and the dark is still full of terrors. Now that will be the end of the Cloak and Dagger part of this issue. This is where we jump in to some Toxin. Now, as we get into this part of this issue, we're met by the Brood. So this doesn't seem like to be part of the King in Black invasion, but something else entirely. And really what we're seeing is local law enforcement just get their butts handed to them, and it looks like they're completely outmatched. But this is when we see Toxin. And Toxin has a new host, a host that goes by the name of Bryn. And really what's going on here is Toxin is telling Bryn, like, there's better ways to spend our weekend than fighting this guy. We can go do something else. And Bryn tells him, like, I thought you would just be happy to be out and about. So why not help these people, do what we can here? But really, Toxin is extremely grateful to Bryn because Bryn saved him some way or some fashion. And he even references how Noel wasn't even willing to do anything to save him. And so he's grateful because now he's healthier, he's meatier, and full of opinions. And so they jump into battle and they start whooping some alien butt. These two together are a wrecking ball of disaster, and they are just messing this guy up. And Toxin's telling it, like, I'm gonna rip you apart from the inside. If you keep on doing this, we're gonna see what your organs look like. And the Brood tells us, like, go ahead because they've done worse to me. And this is when Toxin stops and asks you, like, what are you talking about? And it tells them that Alchemax, they cut him up. One point in time, this was a human being. But this human being was inserted with bone marrow into its bones. The pain every day having to go through a new surgery. Can't even talk anymore. Not like it used to anyway. It's been months at this point, and the only thing standing in the way of it escaping is Toxin. Now this is where both Bryn and Toxin are questioning everything now, wondering if they're even fighting the right people. But before they can really figure out exactly what's going on, we see a man in green armor come flying in and punch Toxin right in the face. Now this green man in armor is referred to as a Guardsman. It's Alchemax's security team, if you will, built to defeat Symbiotes. And so not really sure what this thing's made of, it gives Toxin a good ring and actually throws him back. But this is where we see these two decide to hash it out, to fight this out. And Toxin charges straight at Guardsman. And he takes Toxin and smashes his face right into the ground. And we see him rise up into the air, put his hands together, and a giant blast comes out of his hands, leaving a crater in the ground. As the smoke clears, there is no sign of Toxin because he's made his escape. You know, this is something completely new. They have no idea what they're up against. The best course of action right now is a tactical retreat to figure out exactly what that thing is, how to fight back, if they even can fight back at these things. You know, and he just found Toxin again. Bryn just found him. He's not willing to let him die already a week into the job. And so they head back home, climbing in through the window, and Toxin's, you know, kind of making fun of him right now. It's like, you know, we could have stayed, we could have fought that out. Are you worried that your dad might figure out what's going on? And this is when we see Toxin come off of Bryn, and Bryn is a teenager. You know, a kid that doesn't even have his learner's permit yet. He's never even been in a fight by himself. And at the same time he gets home, his father is also making his arrival. And he tells Toxin to get into his pocket and kind of hide away. So that's kind of what happened. That's their dynamic here, is Toxin stays hidden away until, you know, they have the opportunity to go out at night, sneak out, and go do vigilante stuff. Now, Bryn goes to talk to his dad, and his dad's in the bathroom or in his bedroom, and, you know, he's home earlier than usual. And his dad said, you know, he's worked a long day. And on the other side of the door, we see none other than the Guardsman. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Personally, I thought that was absolutely crazy. That twist right there at the end where Bryn and Guardsman are father and son. They have no idea of one another. It's absolutely brilliant. The Cloak and Dagger issue, it was interesting, but it was really, there was no point to it. This whole issue could have been about Toxin. They could have made this a King in Black Toxin issue, and it would have been absolutely perfect. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love some Cloak and Dagger, but I really feel like them splitting these stories into two stories is making both stories really lack some substance that it needs to make the story really something more. You know, some of these stories, like the Toxin story, have great potential. If they had just taken the risk, given it its own issue, I think it would have done very, very well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you haven't yet, please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and until the next breakdown.